Hey gang, I am Joe Edelman and welcome to The Last Frame Live. And I just realized, gosh, I can hear myself coming back. There it is. All right. Last week, hey, we covered flash. And this week, continuous LEDs for studio and location work. I know a couple of you thought like, what, he's not going to talk about LEDs? Of course I am. I also promised to do a Q&A before I wrap up, so start typing. I'll do my best to answer all of your questions in the next 60 minutes. And if you're watching live, please leave me a note in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you're watching from. Already, I got Michael here in Atlanta, Cass is here, Joe's Photography in Michigan, Lynn in New York, Danny in Vegas, God, I wish I was in Vegas, Alan in Denmark, Philip from Thursday in Australia, Alvin in Virginia, Mike is here, David's in San Diego, Nicola in Italy, Marcos in Chile, Eric in San Diego. How cool is it? I'm sorry, I nerd out just realizing that we can get all these people together from all over the world and we can talk about photography. And hey, if you're watching the replay, you're still part of the process. No worries, drop a comment below the video. Let me know you were here, okay? All of you. You're part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries who tune in to watch The Last Frame every week. And for that, I'm going to work really hard to help you with your photography tonight. And of course, as always, you know, I got to ask, right? It would help a lot more people find out about The Last Frame if you could do me a solid. Hit the thumbs up below the video. Honestly, the more thumbs up, the more YouTube recommends the show to other photographers. Comments help with that too, folks. And of course, while you're down there, feel free to hit that share button. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now, okay? Twitter, Facebook, they're the fastest way to go ahead and get the word out and let people know. All right, so a little bit of business tonight, and we got some news today, right? Today, yesterday, big news days in the industry. So number one, ImagingUSA is coming up. I've been talking about it for a little while. It's in January. I almost said it's not until January, but I'll tell you what, if you want to go, if you're thinking about going, you want to book sooner than later. The event itself is not going to sell out, but the hotel room at the really, really awesome discounted rates in the Gaylord, they're going to sell out. They're already, as of today, I think about 60% full. So you don't want to waste too much time. But here's the cool news. I am going to be teaching a set of hands-on workshops. So apparently the demand for hands-on workshops has been really high. And PPA reached out to me earlier last week and said, hey, could we get you to teach more? And I was like, yeah, of course. So what's going to happen here on Saturday, the 21st? So it's one of the pre-cons. I am going to be doing a hands-on pre-con workshop that is called When Portraiture and Fashion Collide. It's a creativity workshop. So we're going to do this twice actually on Saturday. We're going to do it's 3 hours long. We're going to do one from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then one from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So if you attend, you bring your camera because you are going to shoot. And then of course, if you're at ImagingUSA in Nashville, Sunday morning, let me just scroll forward to Sunday. There is Sunday. I'm one of the people that is tasked with getting everybody awake and ready to go for the day, 8 a.m. But it's on one of the main stages. I'll be doing creative color. It's easy, it's powerful, it's emotional, and it sells. And that's a little bit of everything. We're going to be getting into color theory, color science, how to choose your colors, how to mix your colors, how to work with gels, and there will be a demo. So please, ImagingUSA, you don't want to miss out on this event, gang. I mean, WPPI has already been paired back. Photo Plus, actually, you weren't normally would have been this weekend. It's not happening. So this is the show, right? This is the show. You don't want to miss it. All right. Also, if you're really crazy and you want to spend a whole week learning from me, Texas School, Dallas, Texas, April 23rd through the 28th, 5 days of instruction with me. And there's other instructors, but you pick an instructor and you are with that instructor for the entire week. So if you really want to learn my process, how we do things in the studio, on location, and post-production, Texas School is where it's at. Links for all that, I'm not going to drop them in the chat. I'm going to keep talking. The links are in the description below the video, okay? So we got 2 new cameras in the industry. Is everybody like, oh, excited? And no, not really. All right. So let's just touch base on them really quick. You know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but hey, look, they're out and we should mention them. So of course, Sony, the brand that I'm shooting with right now, they announced the A7 IV, A7R5, which is the upgrade to the camera that I use in the studio. I use the A7R4A. In my opinion, just my opinion, it's an incremental upgrade. The folks at DP Review also essentially, agree with that. There are some new things to it, but nothing that's revolutionary or game-changing, meaning the short answer is, will I be buying a camera? No, not at this point, right? It does have a new processor in it. They've included a multi-shot high-res mode, which is similar to features that like Olympus and some other brands have, but you can get up to 240 megapixels, which is a pretty serious file, right? The camera features improvements in autofocus, image stabilization, up to, I think, 8 stops now. They have improved the EVF. That's always nice. 8K video. Finally, it has a fully articulating and tiltable LCD screen instead of the one that I have on the A7R4A where it just tilts, up and down. Downside, considerably fewer shots per battery charge. Not that that's a deal breaker, but hey, it is a step backwards. I'm sure that has a lot to do with all the processing and everything that's got to happen. So the A7 IV is going to sell for about $3,899 when it hits the street. And then, of course, Olympus, OM system, because this is the first camera that's branded with the OM system name on it, and it's the OM5, right? So remember, the OM1 still says Olympus on the front of it. The OM5, I'm sorry to say, it looks like a nice camera. Don't get me wrong, right? So no hate, but it's basically an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III. That's the camera that I was using at the time that I stepped away from Olympus. Awesome camera. It's basically an EM1 Mark III in a smaller OM5 body, which is going to be amazing for a lot of people, right? So part of this kind of upgrade for the OM5, it has weather sealing. They've added 1080p vertical video for those that, want to do social media. You can also plug it in and use it natively as a USB cabled webcam without any extra software. And I'm sure it's probably because of the small size, because they're jamming a lot into that camera. Unfortunately, it doesn't have USB-C connectors. It's the micro USB-C, which means that you can't do the charging and that kind of stuff with the cable. But they also did take out the 29-minute video cap. Not that that's a camera that you use for a lot of video production, but it's an option. The camera's going to ship in late November. It's going to sell for $1,199. So again, looks like a sweet little camera. I don't think there's any really, really big surprises there. Definitely an upgrade for people that like that size and that form factor. But again, for both brands, nothing necessarily revolutionary. So is it a camera that any of you should be like, either of those cameras, should you be like rushing out to say, oh, I need to get that one? Only if you have been holding a camera that is not getting the job done for you and you've been looking at making a move in either of those brands. If those cameras, fill your needs. There's not a lot of you that need 61 megapixels for the A7R5. Let's just keep it real there, right? And then, of course, if you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter, the benefit is you get that super small camera that is jam-packed with features, but you're also missing out on some of the great new features, higher ISO tolerance, less noise, etc., that you get with the OM1. So, things to think about. All right. So, this week, and by the way, there's lots of reviews out there. So, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can. I'll be completely honest with you. You all know that I'm not a fan of the forums at DP Review. I think it's unfortunate that they don't moderate them, but at the same time, that's part of how they manage to grow that site to have the amount of traffic that it has, because they don't moderate them. So people can go in there and they can talk serious photography, and they can go in there and they can be complete jackasses, which happens probably more often than not. However, the two guys that own the site and do the reviews, I don't even remember their names. It's Chris and I don't remember the other guy. Sorry, other guy. Their stuff is solid. It is what I feel is to be fairly balanced. They are very good at presenting specs on the website and in their videos. Do understand though, right? With any of these review sites that you go to, part of the reason why I mention them is obviously they're not users of a specific brand or ambassadors of a specific brand. However, do understand, number one, the companies send them the cameras. I know that in some cases they may get to keep a body. In most cases, they send it back. But also do understand that frequently the camera companies will give them plane tickets, take them on trips to events that the companies have put together to try out the cameras. So they're also not going to go and trash a camera. But I will say I have seen these guys say some, not negative in the, snipey kind of way, but they've pointed out major flaws in cameras from companies that I know, gave them plane tickets, took them places, et cetera. So I have respect for them in that regard. And that's why I would encourage you, if you're looking for straight reviews, no BS, then check out DP Review. Just avoid the forums, right? Okay. All right. So we are talking about LEDs tonight. And here's the thing about LEDs. So a couple things I want to start out with here. I was going to go ahead and prepare this kind of whole, here's what I use and here's why, like I've been doing. And I kind of stopped myself because I've been getting, again, a ton of questions lately about LEDs. Already tonight, before we came on live, I had 2 people before 6 p.m. that have questions and concerns about LEDs, and I have one other person that's posted. So I'm going to give you a lot of information, and I'm going to focus on the hows and the whys, but I want to make sure that if you're sitting there watching this and you're thinking about LEDs, whether it's, do I need LED? Should I need LED? I really want LED. Ask your questions, right? Let's do some problem solving in the sense that we want to prevent you from wasting money and buying gear that is not going to get the job done. Because, a light is not a light is not a light, right? There's major, major differences. And it's actually a little bit more even keel when you start talking about strobes, which we did last week. LEDs, that's not the case. So there are more specs that you should look at, and you should take the time to learn a little bit about if you're going to delve into that realm. Otherwise, you're going to throw money away. As always, let me give you the disclaimer. I am not doing this video to promote any product. I have had a relationship with 2 of the companies that I'm going to mention, but as you know, in the beginning part of 2022, I stepped away from all ambassadorships. So I am not sponsored by these companies. I have some gear here that I didn't pay for out of pocket, but I worked for it, meaning I traded services. Okay. So that being said, LEDs. So obviously the big difference between LED and strobe. LED is continuous. Strobe is a quick burst of light. So one of the long-standing complaints or obstacles that photographers will point out, especially if you're a people shooter like me, if you do portraits, if you work with models, one of the long-standing complaints involves 2 specific items when we talk about LEDs. Number 1, not bright enough. Okay. And then number 2, when they are bright enough, they make your subject squint. Both are valid concerns and valid obstacles. So before I get to the next step and start talking about some brands and some models, I want to point out one other, let's call it a harsh reality of lighting, right? We all know that all this gear stuff is expensive. So I don't care if you have a lot of disposable income or if you're doing everything you can and saving every penny to try and get your gear, it's expensive. It just is. But if you were to poll working full-time professional photographers, you're going to find that the overwhelming majority of them throughout the course of their career, not, to start out and do it all at once, but throughout the course of the career, they collect a lot of lighting. And when I say collect a lot of lighting, meaning they will have their go-to workhorse lights. Most likely going to be strobes, but that's starting to change. There are some photographers that are 100% LEDs, but then they are going to have other lights. We'll call them specialty lights. They may be lights of a certain size, a certain shape. They may be lights that are able to do different colors or have a very unusual modifier to them that they're going to use sometimes, but definitely not all of the time, right? Last week when we talked about strobes, I showed you that Godot's ring light. That's not a light that I would ever consider using all of the time, because if I use it the way it's designed on the camera with the lens going through the middle, it creates a very distinctive kind of lighting that would be exactly the same every single time I do it. That would get boring really quick, right? So my primary brand, so it's not like strobes where I use Godot's. LEDs, I'm actually split between 4 different brands of light, and I use them for different purposes. Now, the good news is one of the purposes that I'm going to share, most of you don't do, and that's live streaming. It's what we're doing right now, okay? So for live streaming, actually, let me start with those. We'll get that one out of the way because that's not going to apply to a lot of you. For live streaming, I use GVM lights. It's the GVM 100W. And I've got 2 of them that are lighting this scene that you're seeing right now. The first one is, in fact, here, let me go to the wide shot. And, whoops, yeah, it would help if I did that one. Sorry. The first one is in that brolly box that is right up there. Okay. And just to give you, a better kind of sense, as my hand goes out of frame, like right now, when I stop my arm, my fingers are about 10 inches from the front of that brolly box. It's a 100-watt LED light. So it's what they call a COB, or chip on board, COB, right? So it's the one single big chip. It is a bicolor, meaning it will do tungsten light down to 3200K, and it will do daylight up to, it's either 56 or 6500. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll share this link in the chat. I will, in fact, actually, let me not share that one here. Let me get you one other link here so that you can check all this stuff out. On my website, there is a gear page where you can find all the gear that I use, and it's listed, and there are links to it, etc. Okay, so going back to the GVM light, GVM is a Chinese company. These are really inexpensive lights. I'm not going to call them cheap because they're actually really well made. They're solid, they're durable for their size. They're not super heavy, right? The best part is, since it's 60 watts and it's fairly close, I don't have to have it turned up really bright. I have done live streaming for over 8 hours and not had the fan kick on at the power that I'm using either of the 2 lights. The other one is the background light that's on the floor down there behind me. It's the same light. It's just mounted on a baby pin on the floor, tilted up. Okay. So I'm able to use them with no fan noise, but I'm also, my camera that you are viewing me through is working at 1000 ISO, which is very common for video and film work. So, between that whole combination, shooting at f2, I don't need the light to be any brighter at all, right? So those are the GVM 100Ws. One other set of lights that I have in play here in this setup, they're a specialty light, and unfortunately, I'm going to tell you about them because I use them, but they're no longer available. Don't get mad at me for sharing it. There's going to be a version 2 coming, probably after the beginning of the year. In fact, I talked to the designer, the man that created these today. He's in Tel Aviv, Israel. So I know there's a version 2 coming, but they reached a point with these that the upgrades are going to be significant, and they decided it was not worth ordering again from China to have them manufactured. so they basically let them sell out. So these specular lights are sections that can be powered one at a time. No batteries, by the way. And by the way, on the GVMs, same thing. You can get external battery packs for them, but basically there's an AC powered light. There's no batteries built in. These, same deal. These are AC by design. You can use a DTAP battery adapter, which are the big, heavy, bulky adapters. So this is not really portable lighting. This is definitely very much specialty lighting, right? I use 2 versions of these. So I have a set just like this that is back and above my head. It is my hair light. So it's mounted up above me and it's slightly behind me. And I have a very light amber gel on them for the hair light. When I'm not live streaming, just because they were set, I also happen to have 3 of them mounted up on this left side. They're turned off right now. Those are my regular work lights in the space. So that's the specular lights. There will be a version 2 coming next year. These also are not inexpensive, but they're very durable. They're made out of metal, really, really solid to use, okay? My go-to lighting, my primary lighting when I am working with LEDs are made by stellapro, company in California. They're American made. Some of the parts are manufactured overseas, but everything is designed and assembled, created here in the US, in California. The top of the line, they refer to it as their flagship. It is the CLX10 light. So this is a completely self-contained light. It's got a lithium battery built into it. Has a TLCI of 93, a CRI of 94, and it's a 5600K color temperature. If you add the Fresnel modifiers, etc., you can get this thing up to like 18,000 lux, but the more practical number to know, it's 10,000 lumens if you have it plugged in, okay? And it's just a tiny bit less than that, I believe, when you're, no, that's not correct at all. It's 10,000 lumens, period, right? So again, super powerful. What's great about these also, you can put an adapter on them, use them on a Bowens mount. So these can be used with all the soft boxes that I use with my Godox. I can use the adapters that stellapro sells, or this will also fit in a Godox S1 mount, which is the mount that Godox has, the clamp mount that holds the Godox AD100 and AD300. It also fits, you just slide it in sideways like that because of the little bumps on the top and the bottom. Slide it in sideways, clamp it down, and it's rock solid. So, and it doesn't cover the vents to the point that the light is going to overheat, which is also excellent, okay? So when I need a lot of power, this is a light that I'm using, which also means that I'm generally not going to use this light for portraiture, right? Simply because it is going to be insanely bright for my subject. This light, I will tell you, is a big favorite among wedding photographers and event photographers. Wedding photographers love these because if you're shooting mirrorless especially, you can very quickly on location turn one of these on, adjust the power visually so that you've got just the right amount of fill lighting your subject, and then poof, boom, you're good to go. You shoot and it's awesome. If you have an assistant with you, a lot of wedding guys will have one of these on a pole and the assistant's basically walking around with that off camera doing the fill, and the wedding photographer is able to shoot away. So that's what's excellent about these. But stellapro also has one other light that they released actually earlier this year, and that is the stellapro Reflex. So this is a 9,000 lumens. You can see the head of this thing, super, super tiny, right? So what's unique about, in fact, actually here, what's unique about this light, I'll go ahead and show you. This is the light I mentioned earlier that I was involved in some of the early marketing for one of these lights. This is the light that I was involved with the marketing. And I think these things are amazing, in part because I can carry several of them with very little weight and very little size. And by the way, one other thing before I get too far in, here's my Godox 8200s, right? I remember I had one of these last week. There's the CLX10. So to give you a sense of size comparison, They're both very close in weight. Obviously, the CLX10 will take up a tad more space in your bag because it's round, but they are essentially the same size. You can remove the entire mount from the bottom for packing just by using a little Allen wrench, okay, that comes with them, and you take it off. And then if you want to be able to like put it into a foam container in a case, whatever, you can do that, okay? And again, in addition to putting Bowens mounts on these, stellapro does have various, what they call optics available for them. And I'll show you those on the website in a moment. So going back to the reflex, I'm going to go ahead and share 2 quick videos with you. Each of them are 30 seconds long. These are videos that I made. So I did these back in the beginning of the year. This was to show off the capabilities of the stellapro reflex. So I'll play both of these and then I'll come back and I'll break it down and explain how you might use something like this. Okay, and then the second one, which gives you a little different take.
In front of me here, I have stellapro's brand new Reflex S.
All right. So as you can see, the cool feature to this light is that it not only is an LED light with 9,000 lumens that you can put in a Bowens mount modifier, you can put it in a Bowens S-clamp, you can use any of the stellapro optics, but it also has the digital burst. Now, the digital burst thing kind of confuses a lot of people, and I'll be completely honest, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but this was actually one of the things that we struggled with when we were kind of putting together all the advertising and the marketing for this when the product came out, is how to best communicate it. It is not a flash, not at all. So those bursts at 20 frames per second, I want you to make sure that you understand that it wasn't the burst that stopped the action. It was my shutter speed that stopped the action. So remember, when you're using a flash, the flash is so fast, generally an average flash unit, remember, they're all across the board, so please, those of you that are like hardcore techies, don't be throwing numbers at me. Average, it's going to be around 1/9,000th to 1/10,000th of a second. All right, you can use that as an average in the back of your head in terms of how flash is that fast burst going to be. Some are slower, some are faster. And it also depends on your power settings, depending on the unit that you're using, right? But we'll use that number as our go-to for now. So the duration of these bursts is much longer than that. So the burst itself is not what is stopping the action. What they're doing, it's actually really cool technology. They figured out that they could essentially overpower the LED chip. And by overpowering it, they could get it to give an additional, and I'm not sure how many lumens, but an additional amount of light for a very brief period of time. Now, it seems like a flash to our eyes, but it's very slow compared to an electronic flash. But what that does, if you are photographing a person like I had in those images where I've got a young lady who's sitting right in front of the flash, I don't have to blind her. Right? I can set my power for the burst, which is going to be 1 stop brighter than non-burst on average, and then use a trigger. I can use my Godox trigger. You can use, I think it's, I want to say it's a Photox trigger. I'll have to check on that, right? But you can then use a trigger to fire the burst and trigger the burst. For me, I don't use that feature a lot. It was very cool to play with it and to try it out. I do know that most of the photographers that I know, wedding photographers especially, so working pros who have these lights, are not using the burst. It's cool. It's definitely a much better way than what Rotolight does it. So a lot of you are going to say, well, how's that compared to Rotolight? There's no comparison. These things are 10 times better. And you want to know why they're 10 times better? There's a whole bunch of reasons, but I'll give you the most important reason why they're better than Rotolights. The most important reason, because I wanted you to understand why do I pick the brands that I pick, right? The most important reason they're better than Rotolights is because the Rotolights are made out of plastic. These are metal. And Rotolights are bigger around, but not that big. It's not like your Rotolights are this big. So the Rotolights are a small light source with hundreds of little points of light, because they don't have the chip on board. They have the tiny little points of light. And as a result of that, you get very harsh light. Now, you can go ahead and you can buy soft boxes that Rotolight has made, but the problem with that is, number one, they're not very big, especially those of you that like your big modifiers. Good luck. You're not going to do that with Rotolight. And number two, they only work on the Rotolight lights. I use my same Bones mount modifiers with these and with this as I do with my Godox strobes. So one set of soft boxes, one set of beauty dishes, one set of umbrellas, all across the board, I use with these. So you can imagine, even carrying, I have 4 of these. Carrying 4 of these, you can imagine how little space it takes up, right? It's great. Now, what about power? You can power them 2 different ways. So let me actually switch over to their website here, and I'll show you the power piece, okay? So if you look in the middle of the page here, here is the head that, whoops, over there. There's the head that I'm holding, but instead it's mounted on a battery handle, right? So this is one configuration. And you notice this has one of the optics, which I'll come back and I'll talk to you about the optics again in a minute, whereas the one that I'm holding does not have the optic on it, right? I just have a cover so I don't wind up hitting the actual LED. So you have the ability to power them via a battery handle, which detaches, and then you can put a light stand on it, which is what I have on this one. Or you can power them via a remote battery or AC cord using a USB-C cable. So I actually have brick batteries by Anchor that I can attach a 9-foot USB-C cable to that light to power it. And then using the same USB-C cable, I can plug it into an AC block to get power from the AC block to the light and power it. So it's one less cord that I have to carry and be prepared with, because the cord serves double duty. I can use the battery, and the batteries are heavy like any battery, that kind of power, but they're thin and flat. So they don't take up near as much space in your cases as a DTAP battery does. Not even close, right? 93 TLCI, CRI of 92, all good numbers, 5,600 degrees Kelvin. There's no flicker, none of that kind of stuff. There's an example actually of one of the USB-C batteries that I use right there, or you can use a power block. The optics that they have a medium, they have a spot. They are basically essentially magnifiers, like they're round Fresnel heads that kind of go over the front. I don't use them that much. I can tell you from experience, and the photographers that I've talked to, photographers either love them or hate them. I personally know, like even ambassadors for stellapro, some who love the optics and use them for everything they do because they get a little bit more intensity out of the light. And some absolutely hate the optics and they love to put these lights in soft boxes because they're super lightweight and easy to, move around with and manipulate. So it's really, a little bit of kind of your taste and your lighting style. But one of these, especially in this little 24-inch Shamira box, weighs next to nothing, okay? So if you want a deeper dive, and here I will find this, if you want a deeper dive into kind of what these are all about and how they work, when the stellapro, when the Reflex came out, I did an event with B&H, and I'll share this link. It's a full breakdown. It's like an hour long. So if if you're for some reason interested in these, it's a full breakdown of all the details, all the specs, things about using them, all that kind of stuff. So you can check that out there. And actually, the owner of the company, the man who conceived these lights, his name is Daniel Emerson. He is also on that live stream, and he's a part of that, and talks about the lights, answers questions, etc. So, for additional information, you can dig into that, because otherwise I'm going to run out of time, and already we've got some really good questions that I want to get to. So one last light that I use, and I use this light a lot. In fact, I used it today. The cover shot for the last frame tonight and the cover shot for last week's last frame were shot with Godox LED lights, these TL30 tubes. So let me actually switch back to the solo here. These guys are awesome. So I have a set of 4 of them. These ends that you're looking at are magnetized, so they'll like attach to anything that's magnetic. Quarter 20 threads on either end, so that you can mount them on a stand or mount them on a swivel bracket, anything that you want. You can charge them via USB-C on the end, so they're completely self-contained battery, right? When it comes to using them, you have a couple things that you can do. So here, let me actually turn the, let me turn the brightness way down so that I'm not just completely wiping the shot out here. So they're bicolor, taken from 3200 up to, let's see, I believe it's, let me go back to the, there we go, color temperature. We can go all the way up to 6500K, right, on the white side. We can do all kinds of colors. And then, of course, vary the intensity of the colors, etc. And then it's also got some of the kind of gimmicky flashing patterns in that, which, if you're doing video work, they can be kind of cool. But whenever I'm doing like these small product shots, that kind of stuff, it's these that I am using to light. In fact, for those of you that are members of my TOGKnowledge community, I'll go ahead and I'll post some behind the scenes, probably tomorrow, I'll post some behind the scenes of product shots that I did for stellapro of these lights. And I lit them with these Godox lights and, of course, the stellapro CLX10. So since I was shooting for LED lights, we used all LED lights. I did use these for a little bit of accent work, even though they weren't made by stellapro, because I find them very useful. One of the things that's important to know about these, though, so since I do use them for product photography quite a bit, let me see if I can get this dim enough that you're going to see what I'm trying to show you here. And you're not, unfortunately. So here, let me show you the picture. The picture shows it better. If you look close, let me take myself off the screen. If you look close, you could see the multiple light bulbs going up there, the multiple LED bulbs, okay? If you use these to light, for instance, like a piece of glass, right, you will also see the various bulbs reflected. So if I'm photographing glass with one of these, which I do, if you remember, you've heard me talk before about my son and daughter-in-law. Their side hustle is a candle business, so they have glass candle jars that they use. I usually photograph them with these, especially for their newsletters and their social media images, where we use a lot of color because the jars are just like a creamy white. I use the same kind of diffusion material that you see in the V-Flat World cones that Carl Taylor made, that you can make yourself. You buy it on Amazon, really cheap. I use that diffusion material literally just kind of in a spool. So it's about this big around, about a foot in diameter. I haven't done any construction. It's just, unpacked it and it rolls up, right? So I just let it roll up and I stand it up on the table. It's about this tall, but then I take the light and set it down in the middle of it. it only knocks out about a half a stop of light, but it eliminates each of those little LED tubes. So what I wind up with on my glass subject is nice, smooth edge lighting. It's all about problem solving. So for those of you that are in the TOGKnowledge community, I'll share that so that you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about and kind of how I did those behind the scenes shots, okay? So, but now I want to be really clear. So I see a couple of people got really excited about these Godox lights. Look, they're fun, but you're not going to use them that much. And it's also important, they're not that bright. And if you're thinking about using them for portraiture, hold on. So this brings us to one other question, right? And I talked about this a lot in the beginning of the year when I talked about LEDs, because I made it very clear in the beginning of the year. If you go back and you look at those videos, they're still online. I'm not changing my story. I want to be able to go full tilt on LED. This close, but we're not there. Not to be able to do it 100%. And that's why I started tonight explaining. I think, the thing that you have to understand is that over time as a photographer, just like you pick up additional lenses and accessories, you're going to pick up various lights. You still want your primary lighting system that can do the overwhelming majority of your work. Maybe strobes, maybe LED. There's no right or wrong as long as it's right for you. But please understand that with LEDs in general, there are a couple problems that you run into that you have to be prepared for. So number one, LEDs are nowhere near as bright as strobes. Not even close, not even the same ballpark. That means you are going to need to raise the ISO on your camera. So if you're using an older model camera, or if you are one of those people that still hangs on to old school thinking of, can't raise my ISO ever, the image quality will suck because I'm going to enlarge it to 500 or 800% on my computer, and I'm going to be able to see the noise. Well, if you're one of those folks, LED is not for you. Not yet, okay? Because it's not bright enough. You are going to have to raise your ISO. For the rest of us, there's no reason not to raise your ISO. I was raising my ISO with Olympus gear. It's not a problem, right? We're talking like, 2 to 3 stops. We're not talking about having to raise your ISO 6, 7, 8 stops. We're talking like 2 to 3 stops. Just so that you can get your aperture and your shutter speed back in the same ranges that you worked with for strobes, the comfortable ranges. Make sure you're stopping action, make sure you don't have camera motion, those kinds of things, right? That's number one. Number two, remember that if you're going to use them to photograph people, you are also going to be faced with the fact that these things are very bright. So if you are going to do your light placement exactly the same way you do it with strobes, you will have portrait subjects and models that tell you that it is very uncomfortable for them, right? So at $1,000 a head, would I get this to have the burst so that I could shoot portraits with the burst? Not for $1,000, no. What I love about these at $1,000 is not the burst. What I love about these at $1,000 is I can get 9,000 lumens out of a light that fits in the palm of my hand by attaching it to a battery that I can fit in my back pocket. That's awesome. So I'm going to use these in a situation where I am using ambient light, but I want to enhance the ambient light. And yes, it's a small light source, just like a flash. So I'm almost always going to have some kind of a modifier. Not the optics. Again, I'm not a fan of the optics. Some people love them, I'm not. But I will have usually a softbox or something on the front of it to diffuse things and soften things up, right? So look, am I encouraging any of you to run out and get LEDs yet? No. If you are just starting out with lighting, so here's another one of the challenging decisions. If you're just starting out with lighting, there are pros and cons to LEDs. So pros, LED lighting is WYSIWYG. That's actually a programming term, an internet programming term called what you see is what you get, right? That's very beneficial to somebody that's just starting out. The downside is all the things I've been talking about, the fact that it's nowhere near as bright as strobes. And by the way, one of the biggest problems you'll run into with LEDs is your ambient light. So in my studio, for instance, if I'm using the LEDs in my studio, I have to turn off the overhead lights because the overhead lights will impact the lighting in my scene, right? So it's a balance. I find a lot of value to them. I am very glad that I have them. I use them routinely. I was excited about these lights when they came out. I'm still excited about them. And I've said this in the past on this show. I'm more excited about the potential of where these lights go. In other words, what's the next versions going to be down the road? Because the technology that's built into both of these lights as it advances is going to be amazing to work with, right? So by no means in this LED conversation am I saying to any of you, hey, you need to have LEDs in mix. Because remember, everything you're going to do with these, you can do with gels on a flash too, right? So it's, honestly, full disclosure, like I said, I use these a lot for product work, like when I'm doing the candles for my son and daughter-in-law. It's simply so that I can be quick and lazy. So there's one of those 4-letter words that I always warn you about, right? Now, I still pay a lot of attention to detail. I have been lighting and doing product work actually for a very, very long time. So I know how to make it look really good, but it's just faster to pull 4 of these out of the same little case and poof, poof, boom, they're there. A lot of times I don't even need light stands for them, depending on what I'm doing. A lot of times I'll just, hold it in my hand and put a remote control on the camera that I'm shooting with. So again, it allows me to do some kind of quick down and dirty things. Because you can imagine it's my son and daughter-in-law. I don't get paid a lot of money. I make them pay me, but I don't get paid a lot of money to do their work. So, I'm trying not to create a situation where I've got to spend tons and tons of time doing it, right? So Godox also makes TL60s, and I think TL120s are longer ones of those. A lot of the YouTubers you've seen, they like them because they actually use them to create shots. And that's cool if you can get the company to send them to you for free, which Godox won't do, but there's other companies. Companies like Nanlite and others have the tubes. Pavlite has the tubes, but they're expensive. They're straight up expensive. And most of the time when you're seeing that in the videos in YouTube, understand the company sent those YouTubers the items. And, for those YouTubers, good for them, they got all those lights. But it's just not a practical thing for most people, right? So let's see. Going back here, some questions. And again, if you have questions, we still got a little bit of time. Let's get those questions in. Because I know for a fact that this LED stuff still, it confuses a lot of people and it intimidates a lot of people. And it definitely should not intimidate you. But yeah, there's a learning curve because it's different than flash. Perfect example, if you don't know what TLCI is and you don't know what CRI is, Google it. Google. Google it, okay? You need to understand those two things. You should also understand what Kelvin temperature is. But if you're shooting flash, you should understand what Kelvin temperature is. So if you don't need me to teach you that stuff, gang. A quick Google search, you can learn that stuff. You are all capable of that. And then you need to go and play with it a little bit. It's that word called practice. You'll be a pro at it, just like me and everybody else. I promise. So any camera works. James in Alaska said he's looking forward to this. His gas compelled him to buy a couple of used monolights and several Amazon LEDs and 2 loop cubes. Yeah, so, again, ultimately, James, not the way to go about getting lighting. If you've heard me talk last week or other weeks, I'm a big believer in kind of planning out your light system so there's a strategy behind your buying lights. Otherwise, and even though I said tonight, over time, photographers wind up with lots of random lights. There's usually a strategy behind them. And if you're working professionally like I do, part of that strategy is what's the ROI? If I'm going to spend this much money because I think this is cool, well, that's fine. But what's the return on my investment? How am I justifying that expenditure? From Robert, he said, I've experimented with LED and have used flapjack panels from Neewer, Linkstar, and Rotolite. Yeah, honestly, I don't like any of those for various reasons, from quality and craftsmanship, color quality. Rotolite's just plastic. And plus the Rotolites now, the bigger ones, man, those things are monsters. Absolute monsters. I could see them, on a movie set. I could totally see that. But for still photographers, the way that, wedding photographers work and event photographers, even portrait photographers, those lights are not giving you great light quality simply because they're, the little tiny dots of light. That is harsh lighting, gang. Even with a diffuser, that is harsh lighting. Inverse square law, folks. Sorry, right? You're better off with one point of light that spreads instead of a whole bunch of points of light spreading. You are, okay? So yeah, I'm just not a fan of those at all. And that's why you notice, like, my GVM lights that I use for my live streaming and my stellapro lights are all single chips, COBs, COBs, chip on board, right? It's just kind of the shall we say, the specialty lights, the Godox tubes and the speculars that I use for a hair light and for my normal room light. Those are the ones that have multiple bulbs inside. I will say that specular does a great job of diffusing theirs so you don't see the multiple bulbs. So like if you were doing a product shot, like I mentioned, you're not going to see the multiple light bulbs going, from the specular light. But the Godox and most of the others, you can see the separate chips inside. And so you wind up getting reflections of multiple lights, not one light. They're best if used a distance away. But for people, these things aren't big enough and they're not bright enough unless you're going to shoot at really high ISOs. Like this would be cool to have if you were going to go like Times Square in New York City, right? For a night and you were going to shoot portraits of somebody kind of up close. This could be very handy as an accent light to get a little bit of extra light on their face and even make it a color light on their face. Because literally you could have camera in one hand, light on the other. And I've done this. Any of you that were with me in Austin, Texas a couple of years ago on the rooftop swimming pool downtown, it was a fun workshop. We did a bathing suit session and a beauty session at a rooftop swimming pool on a rooftop in Austin, Texas. It was insanely hot. But yeah, we were doing shots of the model coming out of the water because the swimming pool was lit up. So this was kind of after the blue hour. It had just gotten dark. The swimming pool's lit up and, using this just as a little bit of accent light and then working with a natural light worked out really, really cool. Okay. Let's see. Joe's Photography said he was really interested in this and he said he's thinking about them, a few indoor event concert stuff where I can use flash so I can light the crowd and for video work. So, a couple of things. LEDs for video work, yes. Joe, I would not go into any kind of performance and turn on an LED light, man. Even if they let you, that's really obnoxious. I'm just going to be honest, right? Because if you're going to use the light to light the crowd, you are, aiming that light right back at people. And, this light's turned all the way down right now. So even if it's all the way up, I just here, in fact, let's go to white. I want to show you something. So something like this, whoops. So if I turn this, whoops, we'll go to white light. There we go. Gosh, Joe. And then there it is. And now we go to full power, 100%. All the way up. Okay. So, you're going to aim that back at people. That's going to be pretty obnoxious. But I want you to notice, like, even at here, this distance, it's barely overexposing my hand. That's 3 feet, Joe. Meaning it's not going to do you much good. Certainly a light like this will light up more space and more distance, but you will straight up blind people with it. So for concerts, and even for video work in a concert situation, I would not recommend using LED lighting. I think you're going to really irritate a lot of people. So I think that through again a little bit more. Flash is obnoxious too, but at least with flash, it's pop, 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 and it's gone. LED is constant. So understand when you're going into an event like that, the lighting designers for the concert, they work very hard to create a mood that matches the performer style and the song. Any light that you create anywhere in that space is messing with that. Generally not going to be appreciated. So I would be really careful. And a lot of times, Joe, also understand in my experience, you can go in and ask a promoter or somebody, it's like, hey, can I do this? It's like, oh, yeah, whatever. Because they're just not thinking it through. And then they see it and they're like, what the hell are you doing? So just make sure if you're going to ask that question, if the person says yes, make sure you're sure they really get it and they really understand the ramifications, because the ramifications are not really that pleasant for the people that have to encounter it. Okay. All right. Let's see, Marcus. Does that mean the burst can be similarly for working with high-speed flash or high-speed sync and flashes in terms of working with high-speed sync? Not really. In theory, yes, okay, because you can sync at higher shutter speeds. But the problem is if you're thinking like high-speed sync in a traditional scenario, meaning outdoors in sunlight, maybe even a little bit brighter than the ambient light, no, 9,000 lumens is not going to be enough light to get it done, okay? So you're not going to stop any action. If you're simply, you know, well, no, I shouldn't say that. You're not going to stop action, and you're not going to have enough light at 9,000 lumens to quote unquote overpower the sun. That won't work. So it's more a matter of the output of them. Okay. All right. So Eric, you saw it was a TL30. Good. Frosty, yeah, they're not that expensive. You buy this set of 4, comes with charging cords, extra magnet mounts, all kind of stuff. I mean, it's actually a pretty good deal. But again, it's a specialty light. For some of you, honestly, it's a gimmick, right? When I bought it, I had very specific uses in mind, and I can say that I've honestly got my money out of these lights. I easily once a week, I've got these lights on for some purpose that I'm working on. But yeah, so it's going to depend on your disposable income allotment also, if you don't have an immediate ROI that you can assign to them, okay? Ken Miller asks, would the reflex work with event photography where the subject is on the move and some ambient light is available, or is it too bright for the subject? It depends on how close your subject is, Ken, and it's going to depend on what is the event tolerance for having you walk around with a bright light. So as an example, like if you're a wedding photographer and you go into a reception venue and you want to be able to light the venue because it is just dingy dark. Plus you want to be able to get some color into it, because this particular couple, they didn't hire a DJ that came in with all kind of colored LED lights and lit the room up, right? So you want to be able to jazz things up a little bit. Well, if you're working with strobes, you can set some Godox 8200s or even speed lights in the corners and gel them, and the strobes pop when you shoot, but you don't have that light on all the time and it's not in people's faces. If you are going to walk around with the LED light, you're going to want to try and use it at a much lower power setting. Otherwise, you're going to be blinding people. Plus, keep in mind, like, let's use one of the examples I just used. If it's a wedding where you have a DJ that's got the lighting set up and you've got they've got all the walls lit up in a color, then the LED can be very handy for that, provided that you're using it very dim, right? Because those colored lights that they light up the wall with, they're actually not very bright at all. So you're only really going to be using it on a very, very low power, which is the way to do it. But that also means, Ken, you're going to raise your ISO. In that particular scenario, that's actually one of the case uses that we used in the V&H video where I talk about them. And I use that exact kind of a scenario, like a wedding reception where you've got all that color, because the flash is going to blow out that color. So then you have a problem where, as the photographer, your bride and groom spent a lot of money to have that DJ bring in that lighting and set up all that cool color on the walls. And then every time your flashes go off, it wipes out that lighting. So when they get their pictures back, they don't see any of that cool color that they paid for. That's a problem, right? So in a situation like that, LED is amazing, but you're going to use it at a very low power and put a modifier on it. So, and that's actually a great way to illustrate what I've been talking about, gang. Unfortunately, depending on the kind of photography that you do, and depending on your workflow, your style, how you like to work, there is a very good likelihood as a photographer that you are not going to be able to find one kind of light that does everything. It just doesn't work that way. It's no different than even if you drive a car and it's a 4-door car and it's the only vehicle that you have. Every now and then, you got to find a friend that's got a pickup truck or a minivan to bring the new sofa home or to go to Home Depot and get a 4x8 sheet of plywood because it ain't going to fit in your 4-door car, right? So even, a car, there's no one car that's perfect for everything that we ever need to do in our life. That's the challenge, right? So let's see. Anne from Australia. Anne, I'm happy that you called me. Thank you. It's glad to see you here. LRAM, will these stellapro lights solve the Z9 flash sync underperformance issue with its electronic shutter? Whew, okay, so first of all, LRAM, full disclosure, I did not know the Z9 had an underperformance issue with its electronic shutter. So I can't tell you that it will, but let me go on. At times, black bars appear when paired with regular flashes and strobes due to the electronic shutter. Well, so, okay. Traditionally, LRAM, so I'm going to trust that you know what you're talking about, but let me just, for the people listening, let me state a couple things. Traditionally, when you're getting black bars with flash, it means that you have your camera shutter speed sent above the designed sync speed. Back in the film days, that was 1/60th of a second. Most cameras now, it's 1/250th of a second. So I will assume that because of the way you're phrasing this, apparently the Z9 is having issues above that 1/250th if you're doing high-speed sync or things like that. But I've heard nothing about that, so I'm taking your word for it. stellapro will solve the reflex will solve the problem. In theory, so will this, right? Because once again, it's not the burst that stopped the action. That picture where I'm flying that material around the girl's head with a fan, it's not the light that stopped the action. It was my shutter speed that stopped the action. All the burst did was make sure that I didn't blind the model. That was it. That's all it did, right? And it gave me one extra stop of light output from the unit. Because as I explained before, they're able to basically overpower the chip. But if you overpower the chip and leave it overpowered, it'll burn up. So by doing it pop, 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 they can get that one extra stop of light out of the chip without burning up the light. So it would allow you to use a higher shutter speed, but it's nowhere near as bright, total brightness. It's nowhere near as bright as the flashes that you're now using. And especially if you're running into that underperformance issue outdoors using high-speed sync, doing the overpower the sun thing, then no, LED is not going to solve that problem. These are not flashes. That's why it's called digital burst, right? So again, watch that link that I dropped for B&H. There's a great breakdown there. And of course, if you visit my website, visit the gear links, you can get to, all the breakdown and the specs on these lights, all that information. You can visit the stellapro website, the Godox website, all that information's, available. Please, gang, can't state it enough. Do not run out and buy an LED light because you saw me show it tonight, right? That would be the worst thing you can do in the world. First of all, I'm some guy on frickin' YouTube. That is not how you make gear buying decisions. My goal with this conversation is to let you understand what gear I have and why I have it and the occasional times that I use it. And that's why I've actually spent more time telling you all the problems with LEDs than the good things about LEDs. The good thing about LED is really simple. In this case like this, small, lightweight, and it's constant light. And constant light's easy. It's just easy, right? So I'm begging any of you, if you're getting gas right now, and you know what kind of gas I'm talking about, do your research, a lot more research. In fact, feel free to come back next week and ask me more questions, and let's break it down into your use case solutions. Better yet, join my TOGKnowledge community, and I'll answer your questions for you there. And by the way, I know I'm over time, but I need to get this in. TOGKnowledge. If you don't know what it is, go to the link that I'm about to drop into the chat. It is also in the description below the video. Here, let me type real quick so that I don't misspell it. The reason I am making a big deal about you going there now, November 1st. So it's about a week away, less than a week, close to a week? Yeah, less than a week. If you go there November 1st or after November 1st, it will cost you $10 a month or $75 a year to join my community. If you join right now, no games, no gimmicks. If you join right now, you are grandfathered in. You will not have to pay. Ever. Done. No games, right? So I'm not trying to reel you in and then hit you up for money. No. But understand this. Before you run and sign up, it is not social media. So if you're one of those people that has tons of opinions, if you're one of those people that likes to go on social media and look at the pictures and say, that sucks, if she needs more separation from background, should be this, stay the hell away because I'll kick you out. I'm not interested. It is a community. You will get to know people. Follow the directions. There's a lot of directions to sign up. Not going to lie, I'm not about to make it easy for you. I want people that really want to be there, that really want to learn. But once you're there, you have access to me. And about 300 photographers from 37 different countries in that community that you can talk to, ask questions from, and learn from. So if you're going to run and sign up now, that's cool, but take your time. Don't cut any corners. Make sure that you follow all the directions, all of them, because if you don't, you won't get admitted. Okay? All right, gang, I got to run. We'll be back next week. Next week here, you want to know what's coming up next week? I'll give you a hint. Next week, we're going to talk color management. I'm going to show you some data color stuff as well as some stuff for some other companies, gray cards and things that I use when shooting. And then, of course, how I do the color management on my computer and my monitors that I have here, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be our topic for next week. In the meantime, you know the drill. Please, you've got less time to shoot than you had yesterday. So go pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot, it's your next shot, gang. Adios. Take care.